So today we're going to do things a little bit different. We're going to kind of do a crossover podcast with Jared McDaniel. That's at Jared McDaniel on Twitter, and he does the Ag Uncensored podcast. With the shutdowns of the packing plants and the ramifications that could come of that, Jared and I thought it was pretty important to get two different perspectives of this. So I'm going to get the pork perspective. I'm going to be talking to Mike Patterson. He's a pork producer from Minnesota. And then Jared's going to be talking to Brett Crosby. So after, of course, you get done listening to this podcast, go over to Jared's, listen to Ag Uncensored, and get the beef side of the story. In a world full of negative people. Hey, man, I'm just trying to be a positive guy, a positive farmer, a positive outfitter. This is a Shark Farmer podcast with your host, Rob Sharkey. Whatever. And welcome again to Shark Farmer Podcast. Hey, I'm your host, Rob Sharkey, and today we're going to go out to Minnesota. Going to go out to Kenyon, Minnesota. We're going to be talking to Mike Patterson. How you doing, Mike?
Doing pretty good. I still got an Olaf snowman in my yard. I'd like to see that gone.
Yeah, as we're recording this on Friday, we're looking outside the window at 6 inches on April 17th. 6 inches, yes. Luckily, I don't have anything in the ground. You know what? The guys that got stuff in the ground, they'll probably be fine anyway, right?
Most likely, it's just pretty resilient nowadays.
Yeah, they say all that seed treatment and coating and stuff. I don't know. I'm content mine is sitting in the boxes in the shed.
Early planting, if you've got to, is good, but there's those optimal days, and they usually aren't the very first days you plant. So Sitting in the shed, I think, will be just fine.
We know you have hogs, but do you raise crops too?
I don't. So I grew up on a farrow-to-finish hog operation here in Kenyon. So I'm just a mile from my parents' place. So my dad, he farmed about 1,000 acres until last year. I never really got into running the ground. I also work a full-time job off the farm. But I did like the livestock, and so we got into the livestock part of the business.
Well, great. Well, I can't wait to get into that, but we got to pay the bills first. You okay with that, Mike?
Sure, absolutely.
All right. Premiering tonight. Yes, tonight. On April 21st at 9:30 Eastern, 8:30 Central is Shark Farmer, the television show on RFD. Do you get RFD, Mike?
Well, I do not have cable. We barely have enough time with 4 girls to get everything done we need to. Don't have a lot of time for watching a lot of TV, so I don't have that. Sorry,
Mike. You're killing me.
I know. I'm sorry.
Well, there is options to stream it, do the subscription service RFD. We are going to get it on YouTube eventually, but there's like a waiting period. There's all like lawyers involved in this TV and stuff. Can you imagine that? Yeah,
lawyers, they just get in the way.
You are preaching to the choir, buddy. And they don't have any sense of humor. I can guarantee that.
Nope, they take the most conservative approach possible.
Yeah, exactly. All right, we'll be featuring people in agriculture. We'll be having funny videos, inspirational pictures, and we'll be doing a Skype interview. The first Skype interview is with Andy Detweiler, the harmless farmer. You ever heard of that guy?
I'm not sure he's so harmless, but I guess we'll go with it.
That's right. It's amazing what he's doing. Yes, we're excited. When this came out, right, when they said the date in the back of my head, I'm like, well, maybe I'll be done with corn planting by then so I can kind of enjoy it. I don't even know if we'll be started by next Tuesday, but we're glad it's here. We're glad this whole process is coming to fruition. It's been a long deal. These things just don't come together. You know what I'm saying?
Right. It takes time to put all this stuff together.
Yeah. The first episode, we went down there, I think it was like in November, and we did the first 4. And I'd never read a teleprompter, and I had the worst sinus cold like I've had in years. I felt
Were you like a zombie on the video?
Well, and I was afraid to take drugs, right? Because I didn't want to look like a doofus up there. So I tried powering through it, and I was losing my voice. So I'm watching these episodes, and I'm like, thank goodness they at least did some good editing on it.
Well, as long as you didn't mix up the Dayquil and the NyQuil, so you weren't snoozing on air.
Yeah, no, at least I didn't do that. But you should have some funny pictures, right, of some hogs like running you over and stuff.
If we had video in the barn, it would be pretty interesting.
I'm guessing you do. You just don't want to share it.
Yeah, my daughters helped me load hogs, and one time the pig went right between one of my daughter's legs and she went for a ride through half the pen.
Yeah, I grew up sorting hogs, and it was always on the holidays. We were always trying to catch the good markets, right? So Christmases, Easters, my high school graduation night, we're always loading hogs. Is that still the same deal?
We try to schedule them when the girls are available between their activities. But yeah, we're loading hogs pretty often.
Are the girls pretty good at sorting?
They are excellent. They're a pretty good help. The one thing that we do say at our place, though, is what's said in the barn stays in the barn, because sometimes there's some heated words that get said that we don't really mean, but sometimes sorting livestock doesn't bring out the best in a person.
One person that doesn't know what they're doing can absolutely crush the whole thing. I remember one morning, it was like early, like 4 o'clock in the morning. We're shoving them out, and we got to one kind of choke point, the one point that, everybody kind of knows about. We tried curving it, blah, blah, blah. We'd kind of got the system down. You send like 10 at a time, and my sister's 10, and she got blocked, and then a 10 following, and I had a 10, and we had like 30 in this alleyway.
Yep, they're all jam-packed.
It was a freaking salesman that had worked his way up, so he was standing around the corner there. A seed salesman,
yep.
Like at 5 in the morning.
If they can see you, it's trouble.
Well, yeah, of course, the hogs were not going around a corner because this numbskull was there. Anyway, I'll never forget it. Hey, I've got to finish my ad. Mike, quit distracting me. Okay, Shark Farmer. Tonight on RFD, that's 9:30 Eastern, 8:30 Central. Please watch it. All right, Mike, you are out there in Kenyon, Minnesota. Now, we've established that you raise hogs. Now, you were a farm kid then?
So, yep, I grew up on a hog farm. We were like 250 sows, farrow to finish, kind of in the mid-90s. When I was just getting out of high school, times were changing then, and people were going towards larger scale production. Mm-hmm. And we kind of got in on that bandwagon, partnered with a dozen other farms. We kind of went cooperatively and started a sow co-op. We kind of went a little larger scale, but then each of the members own their own farm, and kind of a way for us to stay independent, but still take advantage of some of that size and scale that you need in today's agriculture.
Gotcha. All right, so you said your parents had some row crops. So was it a deal where to get into agriculture, you knew that you were going to be mainly livestock?
We kind of looked at the profit centers, over the years, and my dad, he always said, well, the hogs paid the bills on our farm. There were times where the cropping made money, but, I never really had a passion for driving tractor and being out there in the dirt, I guess. I don't maybe know exactly why, but I definitely did have a passion for the livestock. I was in 4-H and FFA and grew up showing hogs. We sure like to do that, and we still do a little bit of that with our daughters. From a profit center and from what I just enjoyed doing, so we kind of stuck on the hog side.
There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with not having a passion for growing crops, or say you don't have the passion for growing livestock. The problem seems to be when people feel they have to go into it, or like my parents raise hogs, I need to go into hogs, or vice versa, or whatever it is. At least you recognized that, hey, maybe this isn't for me.
Right, and I really got to give my parents a lot of credit. They really allowed me to do what I wanted and go into the avenues that I had interest in. That was really good. I just got into the hog business because I more interest in that, and didn't have pressure, didn't feel like I was pressured into getting into the row crops.
Mm-hmm. All right, Mike, I'm hearing about these shutdowns, right? Well, the plants out in Sioux Falls, and I reach out to commodity groups. I get zero response. So I vented my frustrations out on Twitter, which is never a good idea, but, it's a lot of fun. You know what I'm saying? Then I get a message from the Minnesota pork producers. Lauren Cervic, is that how you pronounce her name?
That is how you pronounce her name, yep.
Yeah, and she offered to help. She gave me your number. So, hey, a big shout out to the Minnesota pork producers for actually doing their job. I mean, that's good to see, right?
They do an excellent job. I know a number of them there at the office, and I would say overall they do an excellent job. I'm glad that they saw your tweet and got us connected.
Yeah, and I'll let it go. It still annoys me, though. You know what I'm saying? So let's delve into this topic of the plant shutdowns, because with the COVID, everything's going nuts, and now they have got a breakout of COVID in these packing plants. So tell me, what has been your experience so far with this shutdown?
Well, it's obviously a little stressful for farmers. Our cooperative, we sell about 3,000 head a week to Smithfield in Sioux Falls.
Mm-hmm.
We were scheduled this week to deliver 17 semi-loads, and all of those were canceled, obviously, because of the shutdown of the coronavirus. So that's really kind of backing things up on the farm. Now, obviously, we have compassion and concern for the people that work in those plants, but, you know, the whole system in the pork industry is really driven for on-demand. We go from the farm to the processing plant to the meat counter in pretty record time, and you mess up one little piece in that chain or shut one of those pieces off, you're going to have some problems in the other parts of the system.
Mm-hmm. And that's, I think, probably what the general public doesn't understand, right? When you can't get your hogs to the processing plant, it's not like you can put them in a box or put them on a shelf. You have to do something with them, whether it's, you know, feed them, whether it's do whatever. I mean, something has to be done.
Right. So I was scheduled, myself personally, to start my first load here on Wednesday, the 15th.
Mm-hmm.
And so a hog barn is designed really to hold the number of head, and my barns have 1,000 each in it roughly. They're designed to hold that many until they're finished and ready to go, and holding them longer than that is tough on equipment, could potentially be tough on the animals if there's not enough space. Because a pig at that point in its life can gain 2.5, maybe even up to 3 pounds a day.
Mm-hmm.
So in 2 weeks' time, the plant is shut down for 2 weeks and we aren't able to load any hogs for 2 weeks. That could be 30 to 40 pounds of extra weight on each one of those hogs. It's definitely a challenge. We've got them on a diet right now, basically kind of a diet feed. We're feeding a lot of soy hulls so that they won't gain so quickly. They do kind of crap like geese when you do that, but that's a negative.
Let's get into the diet in a little bit here. There's a few things happen right when these hogs get oversized. So am I right in thinking that the packing plants want them at, let's say, 280? Is that correct?
It depends on the packing plant. Each one's a little bit different, but somewhere in that between 275 and 300 pounds, depending on which company you're selling to. Our optimum, would probably be about 285, 290.
Okay, so you've got hogs ready to go, right, at the weight that they want. So if you don't get them in, a few things happen, right? Number one, you're spending more money to feed them. Number two, you get a dock because if they get too big, they don't want them at that size. And number three, and one thing you really can't dismiss, is that a lot of these buildings were built for an animal going up to 300 pounds, and now you're raising them to, 320, whatever they go to. Number one, they're going to start beating the living crap out of the equipment. And number two, they're going to start overcrowding themselves.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So that's a challenge from an animal welfare standpoint. That's something that really concerns me as a farmer. I mean, we do everything we can to have those animals healthy and comfortable and doing their best. To potentially see that coming down the line, that's got me nervous for sure.
I remember when I was raising hogs in 98 and we kept them because the market was horrible and, we were trying to hold on to the market went up, didn't, whatever. But at that time, I think they wanted the hogs at like 250 and we got them up to 300. They tore up the building, gates, feeders, everything. The building just was not built for that size of hogs. Will you see the same thing if it happens to you?
I don't think so. I think we've got pretty good constructed buildings. They're probably built a little better than they were back in the early 90s. So I think from that standpoint, we're going to be okay. And maybe crossing my fingers a little bit, but there's no doubt that they're tough on things. My wife and I, we kind of thought, well, what could we do to try to free up some space for these hogs? So we actually put an ad out on Facebook. We got some commitments from the local locker plants to process actually a number of head. I think we might go through 130 or 140 in the next few weeks of butcher hogs to get right into consumers' hands. So we're trying to do whatever we can to make room for them.
So 130, I mean, what's a load? 180?
Yeah, 170.
Okay. You at least coming close to taking one load out of the building that way.
If I can get, a few pigs out of every pen just to make a little bit of additional space, that's definitely going to help.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be a cure-all, but it sure can't hurt to get a few out of there.
Is there some regulations you got to deal with there, selling directly to a smaller plant?
Not really, because we're not selling meat cuts. I'm going to get paid for the pig from the consumer, and then they're going to pay the locker for processing plant. So it's just a straight custom, probably on a scale of 10 to 15 head per turn. This time we thought we'd just try to expand that since the locker plants had capacity. One of them, they do a lot of catering. Well, that catering business is gone, so they're actually getting some business out of this deal when they're having a bad spot as well.
That's pretty proactive. I mean, that's great that you're doing that.
When I found out, Monday morning, I was right on the horn with both of those locker plants, and they're helping me out, and we're helping them out. It's a win-win.
How did you find out?
11:55 on Saturday night, we got an email from our buyer, and I appreciate him sending that letter out before I heard about it in the news on Sunday. As the Easter Bunny was hopping around the house here, I saw that email come through.
He said it at like midnight right before Easter?
Yeah, that was when the decision was made. In their defense, they did send it out as soon as they knew, which not good timing. It wasn't going to be good timing no matter what.
All right, let's go back to these diets. You said you changed up
Sure.
the diet. The reason for that is because you want to slow these suckers down.
Right, absolutely. We realized that even if they said tomorrow that in 4 or 5 days that the Sioux Falls plant was going to be open, we know that there's going to be other plants throughout the country that are probably going to face a similar situation. Others have and probably will for a while. And the other thing is they're not going to be up to full capacity. And we're behind, so they're not going to catch up anytime soon. So we recognized that, and right away Monday morning, actually, I was on the phone with my nutritionist, too. He worked out a plan for a diet that would help slow these pigs down. A lot of that, like I said, involves soy hulls, feeding them additional soy hulls, or wheat mids, or whatever you can get your hands on. DDGs would be another one, but obviously with the ethanol thing, a whole nother topic. There aren't DDGs available, so
that's a whole nother podcast there, Mike.
Yeah, a whole nother podcast, right? So we're using soy hulls at the moment, just some fiber, high fiber feed for the pigs to slow them down. I say it's like salad for pigs. Don't tell my wife about soy hulls. She'll be feeding them to me.
Well, I don't know. I remember you saying it makes them crap really weird, but we'll leave your personal life to you, okay?
There we go.
I don't think the average person realizes the amount of science that goes into the feed rations of livestock. I mean, they have this thing dialed in on seasons, on animals, on genetics. I mean, it's dialed in so that nothing is wasted. And you want the animal to grow as fast as you can, correct?
Well, correct, yeah, and to do it efficiently. Early on in my career, we never fed DDGs, and they were available then. The more we learned about them, the more we thought, hey, this is an effective feed. So, I mean, yeah, there's so much science that goes into it, just figuring out, okay, well, what can we feed them? What does that cost? Is it efficient? Can we get good growth out of them? Can we get good meat out of them? Some ingredients can give you better meat quality. So it's all that thing. It's pretty amazing how much does go into it. And me as a farmer, I'm counting on a lot of other people to help me out in my business, like my nutritionist and my veterinarian. And we're working with a lot of people out here. And there is a lot of technology and science and those things going into it.
Say you get the word tomorrow, right? All right, we'll shut down. It doesn't look like it's going to be what we said. This thing is going to be shut down for a month. Do you have a plan?
We do as a group. We talked about that pig flow a little bit, but our co-op, we start with the sows, and so those sows are pregnant, and they're having babies at the sow farm. They stay on mom for 3 weeks, then they go to a nursery for 8 weeks, 7 to 8 weeks, and then they come out to my individual farm, or our partners are in the co-op. Everybody gets their hogs kind of in their turn. So you were saying, yeah, if the plant is shut down for a month, we are hopefully going to get into some other plants, some other Smithfield plants, with some of the hogs, but that's not all of them. So we've worked out, we've got room for sure for a couple of weeks between the nursery, overstocking those maybe slightly, still taking care of them from an animal welfare standpoint, but we're probably going to crowd them a little bit more there. We did find an empty finishing space that we could take some of our production as a group to. The hogs that are finished and ready to go, I mean, there's no way to stop them completely other than not feed them, and we're not doing that from an ethical standpoint. So those pigs are going to get bigger. I mean, there's just no doubt about that. As a group, we're definitely working on what we can do to create space. We may end up putting the hogs from the nursery into the same barn, maybe put all the heavier hogs that we have left on one side of the barn and double filling the nursery pigs on the other side of the barn, which is not ideal from a herd health standpoint, but we're looking at every way possible that we can find a home for those pigs in our system so that we keep them around and get to the ultimate goal of getting it into the consumer's hands. I've heard some pork cuts are not available.
No. Yeah, my wife went to the grocery store last night and said there was like 3 packages of pork chops. And of all pork, not just a chop, that was it. And this is before really anything has happened to this point.
I heard the same story today on a conference call with one of my coworkers. He had said the same thing, that there was no pork loin or there was very little pork in the meat case.
Okay, you said something that probably people that haven't raised hogs didn't think much of. You talk about bringing in hogs to a building that have hogs in it already. I mean, that's kind of like a cardinal sin with herd health. Worried about that?
Well, absolutely. We are worried about herd health. The one positive is right now across our system, knock on wood, herd health has been good. Typically, we like to do all-in, all-out production. So when I get my hogs, we fill the whole barn in one day. And then those hogs are there for about 19 weeks. And then from week, say, 14 to 19, or from 15 to 19, we're selling out of that barn. It just doesn't, we don't dump the whole thing all in one day. But as they're getting bigger, we sort them out and market those hogs. So, yeah, typically we like to get them all gone, clean and pressure wash and sanitize the building. I don't know if you've ever been on the back end of a pressure washer, but that's about my least favorite job on the farm.
Dude, I grew up with doing that.
That's low on the list.
I've had so much blow back in my mouth. That's why I'm on the radio.
Yeah, and your hair smells for about 5 days after. You're like, hey, I smell pigs. Where's that coming from? That's me. Oh, that's
for
me.
The stuff that was blown so far up your nostril you can't even find it.
So anyways, we like to pressure wash and sanitize those barns, get them clean and ready for the next group. But we may have to bypass that step and potentially risk some herd health just to have the space. It's difficult times. We got to take what measures we have to keep the pigs alive.
Stuff can change so quickly, right? We're recording on Friday. This comes out on Tuesday, so who knows? But when I put that out yesterday that I was having trouble getting help finding someone that is affected in that, I got a ton of feedback, a lot of rumors out there. So I'll just ask you, have you heard anything about if this comes to the point that you would still bring the hogs to the plant and they would simply euthanize them?
There's been talk of that. If we don't have anyone to process them, there has been talk of that. That would be a crying shame because you've got meat cases that are empty. You've got perfectly good animals that are ready to be harvested, and nowhere to go with them. It's a possibility. I think all things are on the table. There's not any of that going on as of now that I understand.
Okay. Try to put yourself in that situation, right? Let's throw the economics out of that. What would that do to your mental well-being, knowing that you raise those hogs and it's just for naught?
That would hit me pretty hard. we're farmers, and we, like I said before, we do the best every day for our animals. I mean, boy, the things that we do to keep those animals healthy, and the the precautions that we're taking to make sure we're not introducing disease, to make sure we're growing the best food we can out there for America, it would be really disheartening. That would be very difficult. I can't even imagine that. We've never had anything. 1998. You talk about the bad times then. We were never really at that point. Then it would be tough on me.
Yeah, I can only imagine. And you sit here and you think, well, that's simply not going to happen. They would come up with something. There's no way that would happen. But if 2020 has taught us anything, is that we don't know.
Right. Yeah, that's for sure. We don't know. Hard to speculate, but at some point you've got to do something, because otherwise you'll just have no room to go with the pigs anywhere. I mean, they won't have room to be housed, and we can't just let them loose.
That's the thing, too. I mean, these buildings are an incredible investment, an incredible amount of money. And to make that money back, they can't be sitting empty. So the whole system, right, is designed from farrow to finish. It's designed to flow from one to another and to where that building doesn't sit empty. And when you throw something like this in there, then that log jam is just something that I don't think people will grasp until it actually happens.
The other thought process of that is could there potentially be euthanasia on the other end, on the front end, so that that those animals, if there's nowhere to go with them, would we have to euthanize small pigs? We're not to that point in our co-op yet. We probably are looking at ways to maybe reduce the runts of the litter rather than trying to save those. We may euthanizing some of those, but wide euthanasia on the small pig end is a concern. It's something that's also been something that's been talked about. Hopefully not something we have to go to as a group, because those pigs are going to be marketed 6 months from now. Like you said, we don't even know what's going to happen on Tuesday. Things can change, and we may really want to have those pigs back.
Yeah, exactly. They could be worth their weight in gold. Here's the thing, too. It's when you talk about this, if you haven't raised livestock, I'm sorry, you're just not going to get it. You just aren't. When you talk about raising livestock that you just have to euthanize, throw the money out the window. That's going to get to you. And when you're in a depressed economy like we're going to find ourselves in, and you've got that mental instability of having to euthanize what you're growing, that, to me, I am really worried about the immediate future of both the hog and the cattle and all these industries that are affected, because what that does mentally to a farmer should not be underrated.
There's no doubt about that. One small comparison we could make in the swine industry was back in 2014 when we had the PED virus. Mm-hmm. Basically killed every pig on the sow at our sow units. Our employees and the people that are working in those sow units had to take out those pigs, and that was from a virus. I can't even think about doing that with a perfectly healthy pig and having to euthanize them. It's awful. It's just awful to think about, and absolutely the mental health piece is a big part of it. And if people are having trouble with that, you definitely got to reach out. There's a lot of resources out there to help out in those situations. So definitely reach out if you're having those issues.
Well, I really hope when this comes out Tuesday that it'll almost be a worthless podcast, because something happened that this will all be figured out. I really, really, really hope that is.
I'm with you, but I'm thinking maybe not.
Damn it, Mike. We got to stay positive. Let's talk about positive stuff. Let's switch gears, because, that's such a heavy topic, and it has to be talked about. I get that. But you said you had 4 daughters?
Yeah, 4 daughters. They're pretty awesome. I got my wife, Rebecca, and we've got Maddie. She'll turn 21 in quarantine, so I don't know. We're not going to the bar to celebrate, but She'll be 21 in May. And then Isabel, my high school senior, she's 18. And then Julia is a ninth grader, and she's 15. And then Leia is a kindergartner and 6. So what I have to say about Leia is, for anybody listening out there, babies come from Hawaii. I'll say it again, babies come from Hawaii.
I bet you I know which island you went to. Come on, I want to Leia.
We went to the Big Island.
Yeah, that's what she said. So number 6 was a pleasant surprise, you're saying.
She's pretty wonderful. I had to give my wife some pep talks to get her through pregnancy, but she made it, so.
When my daughter was old enough to probably, realize what we were doing with hogs, I had gotten out of them. Tell me the process. When you raise a daughter and you're also growing hogs, I mean, do they just grow up with that? Or is there a moment you said, hey, you got to come in and help me sort hogs?
Well, yeah, I mean, they're definitely growing up with it. So, we have the finishing hogs, and to be honest, 3,000 head of finishing hogs is a part-time job. I've got a full-time job off the farm. My wife has a job off the farm. So they're definitely around the pigs. But, when I grew up with was farrow to finish, and I wanted my girls to kind of see that whole process. So about probably 10, 12 years ago, we started making some show pigs. So we kind of got a little operation over at my brother's place from a biosecurity standpoint, and the girls are kind of in charge of that. So we started a show pig operation, and the girls they're working on that. They've been around pigs really all their life. At about 12, we started them loading hogs. You got 280, 300-pound hogs. Just probably not safe to really help sorting and loading. But once they're about 12, they can start helping out.
Believe me, a grown-ass man can be knocked on his rear by a hog just as easy as a kid.
Yep, that's for sure. So they're pretty, like I said, they're pretty good. One time last summer, now I did have one other person helping me, but so myself, 2 daughters, and one other guy, and we loaded a semi-load of hogs in 17 minutes.
Wow. Was that any sorting?
That was sorting, yeah.
That's moving right along. Well done.
They're pretty good hog sorters.
Let's talk about the show hogs. Is there going to be any showing this year?
Good question. I don't know. I know for sure there's going to be virtual and online options for kids to show. I'm sure some of these shows are going to get pushed back, in hopes that somewhere down the line that we'll be able to show. In Minnesota, most of our shows kind of start July. County fairs start in July, and then August, and state fair at the end of August, early September. We're still being optimistic, and we're still being hopeful that we'll have some sort of exhibition. Will it be exactly what we're used to? I don't know. Mm-hmm. But probably won't be. But we're going to have some way to exhibit those hogs. And, part of me says, too, that, the exhibition is fun and the competition, I love it as much as the next guy. There's something to be said for, kids working with a project and caring for an animal all throughout the year. And it may not look like the show at the end might not look the same, but what they're doing out there in the barn every day, I think, can. And that's a lot of lessons that we can really teach these kids.
You kind of hear sometimes people bashing on the show stock or the whole showing animals or all that. And we're talking farmers, right? Because, right. It's not economical. It's whatever. Here you have 4 daughters. I mean, what have you seen them learn from showing livestock?
For us, it's been huge. Since we started our own operation, they've gotten to learn all the aspects of production, where on our farm, we're just doing the finishing piece of the hogs, but they've gotten to learn about, heat check and breeding and all the phases of, farrow and baby pigs and some of the challenges that come along with that. They've got their own business, Country Girl Show Pigs, so if you're looking for a show pig, we still got some. Okay. Shameless plug. They've got their own business, so they're talking with customers. They're doing Facebook advertising. They've learned a lot of things. But even the kid that's buying a hog for the summer, they're learning that work ethic. They're learning that care for an animal. They're learning about feed and which feed ingredients that they could use to make their project look better. Not that many kids are growing up with hogs, really. I mean, with commercial hogs, really. How many kids go into a sow unit?
Very few.
Not many.
Yeah.
Very few. So I think even the commercial industry has gotten a lot of really good employees that know something about hogs because they showed pigs. Do they know it all? No, they don't. But I think there's value in that. It shows that those kids have got an interest in hogs. And then I know a number of them that, have gone into either be nutrition or veterinarian, or they're a piece of the commercial hog sector now, but when they were a kid, their first experience with hogs was showing hogs. I think there's a big correlation there. I know some people maybe, like you said, kind of poo-poo that show thing, that doesn't make any sense. And, we spend some money doing it. But some people spend money playing hockey.
Yeah.
Everybody's got a hobby. Kids are doing things, and I think showing pigs is just as good an activity as any of those others.
Just thinking off my top of my head, I've interviewed people that went into farming on their own, Generation Zero farmers that started out because they were helping raising somebody else's show steer. We've had someone that went into working with hogs because of showing, and now is an incredible spokesman for the pork industry. And I can think of a veterinarian that we interviewed. She got into it because they were raising, I think they were sheep or some damn thing. It wasn't a real animal.
We eat sheep, right? Not many.
Well, Mike, I tell you, 2020, I don't even know what to say about it. I really hope when this drops on Tuesday that all of this will be irrelevant. I really hope that. Who knows? Things could get turned around. They could come up with a solution to all this. If it doesn't, I do know that all of agriculture has to come together. Believe me, all sectors are hurting now. You see the vegetables getting plowed under. You see the milk getting dumped. You see what's happening with the pork. You see what's happening with the beef. We just need to come together and support each other on this, whatever way we can, because no matter what, this is going to be a tough year.
Absolutely. There's challenges in every sector of agriculture. Yeah, the beef guys are probably going through something almost identical to pork. You maybe can sit on those a little bit longer than hogs, but you name it, there's stress in the ag world, and hopefully USDA can kind of figure out this aid package to help people go along. Without it, there's going to be some people that probably won't get through this.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Mike, thank you so very much. And also thank you to the Minnesota pork producers and Lauren Cervik. Thank you so very much for lining up the interview. I wish you the best, and we'll catch up with you later and see how things are going.
All right. Sounds great. Thanks.
All right, Mike. Thank you. Everybody else, we hope you catch us next week. And thank you for listening to the Shark Farmer Podcast. I am your host, Rob Sharkey. Please visit us at www.sharkyfarms.com. And just search for Shark Farmer to follow me on Twitter. Later.